SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation. SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation.
රෝස සුවඳ තවත් තිකු කලක් රැඳෙන්න ඩබල් පර්ෆියුම් ලුක් සමගින් එන නව සන්ලයිට් රෝස්.
Tonight, don't even think about it. The President orders a police crackdown on interprovincial travel until the 21st of this month as health experts urge the public to prevent another case spike. Made to measure. Following parliamentary committee approval, the BOI announces a running start for new apparel zone in Eravur.
How do they localize $1 billion to fabrics in the country? And that will not be installations in the Eravur zone. The total investment value is
Ups and downs. Local milk producers hike prices to curtail losses as the opposition takes to the streets in protest. Act with care. The IMF calls on central banks to keep a close eye on inflation, especially transitionary pressures. All this and much more coming up on this Friday, the 15th of October 2021.
නිකන් ලැබෙන ෆ්‍රී පැක් මුළු පවුලට වාසි
Kill Smart Family Season 4.
From Ada Derana, this is Ada Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Shanella Fernando in your top stories for tonight. The police are set to enforce stringent measures to prevent public movements across provincial borders until the 21st of this month, with an upcoming long weekend due to start from tomorrow with 2 public holidays next Tuesday and Wednesday. The move comes in response to a presidential directive for the authorities to ensure strict maintenance of the movement restrictions until next Thursday. Meanwhile, health authorities released a new set of guidelines today, which will come into effect tomorrow, further easing the already prevalent health restrictions.
In order to ensure that Sri Lanka would sustain its hard-earned gains through the island-wide quarantine curfew, health officials issued a set of guidelines on the 30th of October, one day before the country was freed from the curfew. As such, the quarantine guidelines would be implemented in 2 stages. The first set of guidelines would last from the 1st of October until the 15th of this month, and based on the country's current situation, the next set of guidelines would come into effect from the 16th until the 31st of this month. The second set of guidelines further eased the restrictions presented the first time around. Accordingly, physical meetings and events carried out at locations could allow a maximum of 25% of the venue's capacity, not exceeding 50 persons. From tomorrow, restaurants will be able to facilitate in-house dining but only at 30% of its capacity, not exceeding 50 persons. However, if in-dining facilities are outdoors, up to 60 persons are allowed on the premises. Shops, groceries, pharmacies and supermarkets could allow up to 20% of customers on premises. In the meantime, weddings can now be carried out with not more than 50 guests. However, if that function is held outdoors, up to 75 people can participate. The guidelines further stipulate that up to 20 persons can attend a funeral. However, it must be carried out within 24 hours.
මේ රෝගය පැතිරෙන්නට තුඩ දුන්න ප්‍රධානම කාරණයක් හැටියට අපි දැක්කේ ජනතාව ඒකරාශී වීම. ඒක විවිධාකාරයෙන් ඒකරාශී වුණා. එහිදී මංගල උත්සව සහ අවමගුල් උත්සවත් මේකට හේතු වුණයි කියන එක ඉතාමත් පැහැදිලි දෙයක්. එතකොට එවැනි එකක් සමහරට දහස් ගණනින් රැස් නොවුනට 50ක් 60ක් රැස් වුණත් ඒකත් ඒක රෝගය විශාල පිරිසකට ඒක බෝ කිරීමට තරම් හේතු සාධක වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ නිසාම අපි මේ මොහොතේ අපේ විවාහ මංගල උත්සව කියන එක අපේ සාමාන්‍ය සමාජික ක්‍රියාවලියක් හැටියට අත්‍යවශ්‍ය දෙයක්. නමුත් ඒකේ අත්‍යවශ්‍ය කාරණා ටික අපි ඉෂ්ට කර ගනිමින් මේ ඒ කටයුත්ත සම්පූර්ණ කරනවා විනා මේ රෝගය පැතිරීමට තුඩු දෙන කිසිම ආකාරයක හැසිරීමක් කිරීමෙන් වළකින්න කියලා සියලු දෙනාගේම ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
Meanwhile, even though the country reopened on the 1st, interprovincial travel is still prohibited. The President's Media Division announced today that it has decided to instruct law enforcement personnel to strictly enforce interprovincial travel restrictions until the 21st of October. It further stated that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had instructed security forces to vigilantly monitor the provincial borders, especially due to the long weekend coming up, including holidays falling on both the 19th and 20th of next week.
මහජනතාව විවිධ වන්දනාචාරිකා ඒ වගේම විනෝදචාරිකා සංවිධානය කර තිබෙන බවටත් ඔවුන් ඒ සඳහා සූදානම් වෙමින් තිබෙන බවටත් පොලිසිය වෙත තොරතුරු ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. ඒ පිළිබඳව අපගේ විශේෂ අවධානය යොමු කරනු ලැබුවා. ඒ අනුව මෙම පළාත් අතර සංචලන සීමාවන් පාලනය කිරීම සඳහා පොලිසිය විසින් අද දින සිටම ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම ආරම්භ කරනු ලැබුවා.
In the meantime, health authorities say that there has been an increase in the number of children admitted for the treatment of multi-system inflammatory syndrome and urge parents to be mindful of such conditions among their children.
මේ මොහොත වෙන විට රිජ්‍ය ආර්ය ළමා රෝහලේ දැඩි සත්කාර ඒකකයේ මෙවැනි රෝගීන් 6 දෙනෙක් ප්‍රතිකාර ලබනවා. ඊට අමතරව මේ වන විට දැඩි සත්කාර ඒකකයේ පමණක් රෝගීන් 78 දෙනෙක් ලබලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම වාර්තා වුණු රෝගීන් රිජ්‍ය ආර්ය ළමා රෝහලේ පමණක් 150කට අධිකයි. පසුගිය දින 5 ඇතුළත මේ රෝගය වැළඳුණු දරුවන් දෙදෙනෙක් අවාසනාවන්ත ලෙස මිය ගියා. මේකේ වැදගත්කම තියෙන්නේ මේකට බෙහෙත් තියෙනවා. අපි කලින් හඳුනාගත්තොත් නිසි ප්‍රතිකාර ලබා දුන්නොත් මේ රෝගීන් ගලවා ගැනීමට හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම නිසි කලට නිසි ප්‍රතිකාර නොලැබුණොත් ඒ රෝගීන් මිය යනවා. මේ රෝගයේදී සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ කොරෝනා රෝගයට විරුද්ධව අපේ ඇඟේ හැදෙන ප්‍රතිදේහ අපේම ඇඟේ අවයව වලට විරුද්ධව ක්‍රියාකාරී වීම. එම් බැරෑරුම්ම තත්ත්වය තමයි හෘදය වස්තුවට විරුද්ධව ක්‍රියාකාරී වෙලා හෘදය වස්තුව අකර්මණ්‍ය වෙලා රුධිර පීඩනය අඩු වෙලා ඒ දරුවන් මිය යනවා.
Health authorities today urge parents and students waiting for vaccinations not to rush to centres and contribute to overcrowding as inoculation targeting 18 and 19-year-olds commenced today for the first time in Colombo. Health experts said today that they hope to complete inoculating 75% of students belonging to this age group in the Colombo district by tomorrow.
Sri Lanka's child vaccine program was extended to 18 and 19-year-olds for the first time as a pilot project in the Colombo district today. Under the program, students of this age group will be administered with 1 dose of the Pfizer vaccine. As such, the immunization drive was launched at selected schools in the zonal education offices of Homagama, Colombo, Sri Jayawardhanapura and Piliyandala. The vaccine drive for students belonging to the same group in other districts will commence on the 21st of this month.
බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා ළමයි 8365කට වැක්සිනේට් කරන්න අද දිනේදී. එතකොට 140ක් ඉන්න මුළු සංඛ්‍යාවෙන් අද දිනේ කව කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. හෙට දිනේ 7600 ගාණක්. එතකොට 135ක් කව වෙනවා. අපි මේ වැක්සින් ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑම් එක තුල RDHS ඒරියා එකේ ළමයි මුළු සංඛ්‍යාව අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍යාංශයෙන් දීලා තියෙන 20688ක ප්‍රමාණයක් කව කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. එතකොට අද දිනේ සහ හෙට දිනේ ඇතුළත ළමයින්ගේ පැමිණීම අනුව 75ක ප්‍රමාණයක් කව කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන අතර අධ්‍යාපන දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවෙන් තව ඉතිරි දවස් 4ක් දීලා තියෙනවා. ඊතුරු දවස් 4 ඒ අනුව කව කරන්න අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. 21 වෙනිදායින් පසුව සෙනසුරාදා දිනවල සෞඛ්‍ය වෛද්‍යනාරී කාර්යාලය තුල එන්නත් කරණයක් පැවැත්වෙනවා. අපි උදාහරණයකට හිතමු කොළඹ ඉස්කෝලේක සිටින දරුවෙක් දුර පළාතක දිස්ත්‍රික්කයක සිටිනවා නම් ඔබට කොළඹ පිහිටි ඔබගේ පාසලට පැමිණීමට ප්‍රවාහන අපහසුතා තියෙනවා නම් ඔබගේ ප්‍රදේශයේ සෞඛ්‍ය වෛද්‍යනාරී කාර්යාලයේ සෙනසුරාදා දිනයේ පැවැත්වෙන COVID-19 එන්නත් කරන සායනයේදී ඔබට ඔබගේ එන්නත ලබා ගත හැකි.
With this being the case, the Ministry of Health urged parents and students not to crowd centres as there are plenty of doses to go around.
I would like to urge the students as well as parents to wait until definite communication comes from the school or from the MOH of the area, inviting you all to come to a specific place on a specific day, on a specific time and get the vaccination. We are not in a position to tell from this point or from this national level to say that the vaccination will be carried out in these places on these days at the moment. Basically, because of the logistic issues, it has to be organized at the field level so that without much inconvenience you can get the vaccination.
Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa and former Divinaguma Director General Kitsiri Ranawaka have been discharged from a case filed against them for alleged misappropriation of funds. The case was filed against the minister and 3 others, including former Secretary to the Ministry of Economic Affairs Dr. Nihal Jayatilaka and former Deputy Director General of Divinaguma Department Bandula Tilakasiri. They were accused of allegedly misappropriating 36.5 million rupees belonging to the Divinaguma Department, which were then used to grant housing aid for beneficiaries of the rural project in the run to the January 2015 presidential election. When the case was taken up today, the court released the duo from the case after the Attorney General withdrew previous indictments filed against them.
Big 3.
After the recent price hike of imported milk powder, local producers too have followed suit with their own revisions today, with state-owned Milko saying that the increase gives the company a lifeline by allowing it to recover losses it incurred during the price control era. With that, the main opposition Samagi Jana Balawegaya took to the streets today to protest the government's inability to control local prices in the face of rising global prices. The recent decision to remove price caps on essential food items has seen the prices of imported milk products rise steeply. The rise was driven by high global market prices, which then led to shortages as importers struggled to maintain prices. With that, the need to raise prices has also affected local dairy companies as well. 2 leading local manufacturers announced that their prices too will be revised from today. Lasantha Wickramasinghe, the chairman of state-owned dairy producer Milko, the producers of Highland milk products, announced that the price of a 400-gram pack of full cream milk powder would be increased by 90 rupees. This brings the new retail price to 470 rupees. In addition, the price of a 1 kilogram pack of Highland full cream milk powder was upped by 225 rupees to a new retail price of 1,170 rupees. Speaking to Adadharana, Executive Chairman of Milko, Lasantha Wickramasinghe says that he views the removal of price controls as an opportunity for the company to pull back on the continued losses it had to deal with. Speaking to Adadharana, Executive Chairman of Milko, Lasantha Wickramasinghe says that he views the removal of price controls as an opportunity for the company to pull back. Meanwhile, following suit was another local producer, Pelvatha Dairy Industries, who announced an 80 rupee increase in their own 400-gram pack. The new price of a 400-gram pack of Pelvatha full cream milk powder is 460 rupees. Meanwhile, the main opposition party, the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, staged a protest in Piliyandala today over alleged government inability to control rising prices of essential food items.
හැම පැත්තකින්ම මිනිස්සුන්ව තලනවා පෙලනවා පොඩි කරනවා කොතනකවත් සහනයක් නැහැ බඩු මිල වැඩි කරන ඒ අරමුදල් වලින් මොකද කරන්නේ දේශපාලඥයන්ට සංවර්ධනයේ නාමයෙන් මිලියන 100 200 බෙදනවා ජනතාව හාමතේ තබන්නට බෑ මතකද මේගොල්ලෝ විපක්ෂේ ඉන්නකොට කරපු දේ මිනිස්සුන්ට දෙන සහනවත් විවේචනය කරා හැම දෙයකම බාධා දැම්මා අද මොකද්ද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ මේ රජේ ඉන්න මහලකු මොළහතේ මුදල් විශාරදීන්ට බැරි වෙලා තිබෙනවා රටේ ජනතාවට සහන ලබා දෙන්න.
The Committee on Public Finance has given the green light for a 400-acre new special textile production zone in Eravur at a total investment value of over $350 million. Speaking to First at 9, Chairman of the BOI Sanjay Mohuttala expressed confidence in achieving the target of localizing near $500 million worth of textile production through the development of this zone. The special textile production zone is expected to generate substantial employment opportunities with $135 million project already approved. A new special textile production zone spanning 400 acres in the area of Eravur in the Batticaloa district has been approved by the Committee on Public Finance. The new textile production zone project will be implemented by the Board of Investment along with the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, and it will be established under the Strategic Development Act number 14 of 2008. According to the chairman of the Board of Investment, Sanjay Mohuttala, many of the leading players in the local industry have already reserved land to start construction.
Many of the leading players in Sri Lanka have reserved land, and there are several large international players who are waiting to come to Sri Lanka the moment the border controls for COVID has been lifted in their respective countries. In that regard, we are very confident that the zone can be filled in, and our overall objectives of localizing close to $500 million worth of apparels can be achieved through development of this zone.
The BOI also says that proposals have already begun coming in for approval, with some already approved, including one worth $35 million.
BOI has already approved the first proposal that we received, which is the value of $35 million, and several other applications are expected from the local manufacturers who have reserved their land in Eravur. The total investment value for this zone will eclipse $350 million and will generate substantial employment in the region.
The BOI chairman also touched on the key considerations in building the special textile production zone.
Though we export over $5 billion worth of apparels, we import close to about $2.3 billion worth of raw material to make those apparels. So we looked at and said, how do we localize $500 million to $1 billion worth of fabrics within the country? And that was one of the key considerations in building the Eravur zone. The second part is a ecological consideration. Increasingly, the high-value product that Sri Lanka exports, those consumers demand the products have a low ecological footprint. By having end-to-end value chain managed in Sri Lanka, we can ensure the carbon footprint of these products can be minimized. Also, the government's effort to move the entire power grid to 70% renewable will enable the country to not only be an ethical sourcing destination, but also an environmentally sensitive product. By having the zone in Eravur, it is an area that requires industrialization, manufacturing. There's ample talent pool that can be tapped into work in these sectors, thereby providing gainful employment for many other people living in the East. So we will have the entire infrastructure fully operational by mid-year next year.
The Department of Meteorology cautions the fishing and naval communities to be vigilant as winds over deep and shallow sea areas are expected to enhance from today, resulting in rough sea conditions. Spells of showers are also forecast in a number of areas across the island. However, Director Forecast of the department, Dr. Shirobani Jayawardena, says that no adverse weather conditions are expected. The Department of Meteorology has issued a warning for the naval vessels and the fishing community yesterday, calling for vigilance with wind speeds over the deep and shallow sea areas around the island expected to increase from today. According to the Met Department, wind speeds are most likely to go up to between 60 to 65 kilometers per hour at times in the deep and shallow sea areas of the western, southwestern and south of the island. The advisory says that sea areas will be rough or very rough at times.
Windy condition over sea areas surrounding western and southern coastal areas is expected to be increased from tonight and next 2 days. So these sea areas may experience high swell waves with 2.5 to 3 meters height, and naval and fishing communities are advised to be vigilant in this regard.
Meanwhile, the Met Department is also forecasting several spells of showers in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central and northwestern provinces and in Galle and Mathura districts for tomorrow. The department expects showers or thunder showers in a few places in the Ubud province and in the Ampara and Patiklo districts during the afternoons or night. Wind speeds too can increase up to 30 to 40 kilometers per hour at times on the western slopes of the Central Hills, northern, north central, northwestern and southern provinces and in the Trincomalee district. However, the Forecast Division Director at the Met Department says that no adverse weather conditions are expected.
Showers can be expected over southwestern quarter, but we don't expect extreme weather conditions over the island.
Welcome back in business news. The International Monetary Fund's Monetary and Financial Committee, consisting of 24 finance ministers and central bank governors of IMF member countries, has called on governments to carefully calibrate domestic policies, monitor pricing dynamics, but also look through transitory pressures. In a communique released after a meeting of the committee yesterday, it also warned of divergent recoveries in the world, mainly due to stark differences in economies, vaccine access and policy support.
The International Monetary Fund Steering Committee is urging central banks to closely monitor pricing dynamics, but also look through transitory inflationary pressures that could fade as economies normalize. Issuing a final communique following its meeting held yesterday, the International Monetary and Financial Committee, consisting of 24 finance ministers and central bank governors of IMF member countries, called on governments to carefully calibrate their domestic policies in the face of an evolving pandemic situation. Chaired by Sweden's Finance Minister Magdalena Andersson, the committee's statement following the latest meeting warned of divergent recoveries in the world, mainly due to stark differences in economies, vaccine access and policy support. The statement also added that the reasons for the trimming down of its global growth outlook earlier this week began with inflation concerns stoked by pent-up demand and included supply chain bottlenecks, higher energy and commodity prices, and weather events as well. It also revealed that central banks must monitor price dynamics closely and take appropriate action if there is a risk of long-term damage from short-term price shocks. Hence, the committee advises central banks to base their actions on whether the shocks are transitory or not.
The Central Bank of Sri Lanka has reconstituted its Financial System Stability Consultative Committee with a host of private and public sector personalities on board. The committee is to be chaired by Lanka Clear Chairman Dr. Kenneth De Silva and will also feature heads of several blue-chip conglomerates as well. The Central Bank's Financial System Stability Consultative Committee has been reconstituted with eminent personnel in the financial sector with effect from the 6th of this month. The 11-member committee is to be chaired by Lanka Clear Chairman Dr. Kenneth De Silva. The rest of the committee will consist of the Finance Houses Association of Sri Lanka President Niroshan Uduge, Director of the Credit Information Bureau CNSN Anthony, and Chairman of the Sri Lanka Banks Association Lakshman Silva. Also on the committee, the Managing Partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers Sujiva Mudalige, Vice President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, Sanjay Bandara, and President's Counsel Kushandi Alvis. Our Chairman of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, Vish Govindasamy, John Keels Holding PLC Chairman Krishan Balendran, LOLC Holdings Group Managing Director Kapila Jayawardena, and Acting Director General of Colombo Port City Economic Commission, Saliya Vikramasuriya. The Colombo benchmark all-share price index gained 2.16 points to close at 9,623.81, while the S&P SL index of SL20 index of more liquid stocks fell 0.49 points to close at 3,546.61. Overall market turnover was today was 3.4 billion rupees. Now here's Dimantha Matthew today with your market update.
Today the market scraped through into the green territory where we are seeing just a 2-point gain from yesterday. Index closed at 9,623 points. So overall, if you take the index, we saw a sizable uptrend during the day. However, it was mostly during the first half of the day. After the significant uptrend, we saw a lot of selling pressure coming into the market, erasing most of the gains. Almost all the gains have been erased, and we've only managed a 2-point gain during the day. Even the S&P SL20 was just up by 2 points. So overall turnover levels seems to be onto the high side. So we are having 3.5 billion level of turnover.
The rupee remained unchanged at 202 rupees and 99 cents against the US dollar today. Let's now take a look at how the rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining. I'm Shanella Fernando. Have a good night.